My boss accused me of theft. He dismissed me and informed all our customers that I was misappropriating funds. I chose not to argue back. Instead, I discreetly engaged a forensic expert to examine the accounts. It revealed he had taken $340,000, so I was employed at a medium-scale shipping firm. Nothing fancy, handling storage, stock monitoring, ensuring deliveries were punctual. I'd been with them for 4 years. My immediate supervisor, let's name him Derek, had been there for 7. Derek was the sort who appeared capable at first glance, skilled with customers, familiar with the processes, but if you observed closely, you'd see he never handled the tough tasks. He assigned everything, claimed praise for triumphs, and had this odd knack for disappearing when issues arose that I didn't object to initially. I genuinely enjoyed the role. I'm someone who finds fulfillment in an organized ledger in verifying every crate is recorded. My colleagues often teased that I was wedded to the stock system. They weren't mistaken. I'd spot inconsistencies that escaped others. A lost item code here, a repeated notation there, minor things, but they counted. Around 10 months back, I began detecting something amiss. We had this major client, a large store chain ordering electronic parts in volume. Valuable goods, chips, video cards, the type that could vanish if not watchful. The purchases were substantial, but the stock records didn't align with the dispatch documents. Initially, I assumed it was merely an input mistake. It occurs. But reviewing 3 months of data, the trend was steady. We were registering loads that were 10–15% bulkier than what truly departed the facility. I believe it was a Wednesday when I first pointed it out to Derek. I didn't blame anybody. I simply stated, hey, I suspect we have a monitoring glitch with the Apex profile. The masses are inconsistent. He glanced at the display for perhaps 5 seconds and remarked, likely a weighing device adjustment issue. I'll check it out. He didn't check it out. 2 weeks on, I was still observing the mismatches, so I did my usual routine. I began recording. I captured images of each discordant entry. I matched dispatch papers with our in-house notes. I even verified the vehicle mass slips from our loading area. The figures were undeniable. Somebody was pilfering merchandise and concealing it in the setup. I didn't realize it was Derek at that point. I just knew a problem existed. Then one morning in March, I was summoned to HR. Derek was present, along with our area overseer, a man called Paul, whom I'd perhaps conversed with twice in 4 years. Paul wore a face like he'd encountered something unpleasant. He didn't allow me to take a seat. We must discuss the Apex profile, he declared. I felt a momentary ease. At last, somebody was addressing this earnestly. Yes, I've been attempting to highlight that for. We are aware you've been viewing those documents, Paul cut in. Derek informed us last week. I glanced at Derek. He avoided my gaze. Paul went on. We've detected considerable stock reduction linked to that profile. More than $18,000 in absent goods over the past 4 months. And the sole individual who's regularly accessed those particular files beyond standard procedures is you. It felt like a blow to my gut. Hold on, what? No, I was checking them because I discovered inconsistencies. We require you to relinquish your entry card and any firm gadgets, the HR person stated. She pushed a dismissal notice over the desk. Immediate effect, I glanced at Derek once more. He was fixated on his fingers. This is absurd, I uttered. My tone faltered. I flagged this. I'm the one who uncovered the issue. And you're the only one with the permissions and chance to perform the pilfering, Paul replied. We're not filing complaints currently, but that might alter if our probe uncovers more proof. You must depart the site immediately. I was accompanied out by guards. I didn't get to empty my workspace. They gathered my items and sent them to me 3 days afterward. My coffee cup was shattered in the package. The harshest aspect, I couldn't justify myself without appearing culpable. What could I claim? I was probing the pilfering. That's precisely what a pilferer would assert, so I remained silent. I accepted the dismissal notice and exited, and then Derek began spreading word. I'm unsure what he conveyed to folks, but in a week my device was inundated. My teammates, individuals I'd collaborated with for 4 years, were messaging me inquiring if it was factual. One of them, a fellow named Marcus, whom I'd mentored when he joined, messaged me. Man, what the heck? Derek claimed you'd been taking for months. I stood up for you, but he displayed the records. I yearned to reply. I yearned to yell that I hadn't done it, that Derek was fabricating, that someone ought to examine the real proof. But I refrained. I merely answered, I didn't take anything. That was all. Marcus never messaged again. My LinkedIn began receiving notes too, folks from the field asking if the gossip was accurate. One headhunter I'd collaborated with on an earlier employment hunt sent me a courteous note that essentially said, I learned some details. And I believe we should halt your employment pursuit until this subsides. I wasn't merely dismissed, I was ostracized. I passed 3 days on my sofa inactive. I couldn't consume food, I scarcely rested. My partner then, we'd been a couple for 2 years, made me sit on the 4th day and said, "You must contest this. You must engage an attorney or contact authorities or such." I recall gazing at the surface and pondering with what funds. I'd recently lost my position. I had perhaps $4,000 saved. Attorneys cost a lot, and even if I could pay for one, what would I declare? I was dismissed for pilfering, but I assure you I didn't. No one would trust me over Derek, who had 7 years of service and an unblemished history. But my partner was correct on one point. I couldn't simply remain there, so on day 5, I activated my computer. I still had entry to my private email, and prior to being dismissed, I'd been sending myself duplicates of the mismatch summaries. Not because I anticipated needing them. I just did it as that's my method. I maintained duplicates of all. I devoted the whole weekend reviewing those messages. I constructed a chart. I aligned dates, load masses, and vehicle notes. And then I noticed it. Each mismatch, each altered record notation had been changed by the identical user code, Derek's. I lacked system entry anymore, but I had timestamps, I had details. And I possessed sufficient proof to demonstrate the pattern predated my probe. On Monday, I contacted an attorney, not an upscale one, a person who offered complimentary advice for work conflicts. I carried my computer and presented everything. He examined it for about 20 minutes and then stated, "This is an improper dismissal matter, possibly even slander, but you require additional. You need an individual to review the firm's true finances." "I can't pay for a review," I replied. "You don't have to," he responded. "You need to compel the firm to review itself." He assisted me in composing a note. It was directed to the corporate oversight department, not Paul, not HR, but the staff whose role is to probe precisely this sort of matter. The note was courteous. It didn't charge anyone. It merely stated I was dismissed for supposed pilfering connected to the Apex profile. I think this dismissal was unfair, and I am seeking an official external review of the concerned profile. I have proof indicating the pilfering was done by another staff member, and I am prepared to assist completely with any probe. I included my chart and the message records. I dispatched it on a Tuesday. I didn't inform anyone, I didn't share it, I just pressed send and anticipated. For 2 weeks, no response. I was beginning to believe they'd disregarded it. I was submitting applications, but each felt futile. My field is compact, news spreads quickly, I'd been labeled a pilferer and no one desired involvement. Then 3 weeks following the dispatch, I received a call from an unfamiliar number. I nearly ignored it. "This is Sandra Qley from Alvarez and Marcel," the lady announced. "We've been hired to perform a monetary assessment of your previous employer. I comprehend you provided proof concerning stock mismatches. I'd like to arrange a discussion with you." I think I affirmed yes around 15 times consecutively. We convened 2 days afterward. Sandra was a specialist in uncovering financial offenses, the type who detects monetary wrongdoing professionally. She arrived with an associate and they both scrutinized my chart row by row. They posed queries I couldn't resolve. They sought background I couldn't supply, but they trusted me. "This is solid effort," Sandra remarked, tapping her writing tool on my computer display. "You essentially completed half our task. We're going to require entry to the complete database, but if your schedule is precise, this ought to be simple." "What occurs next?" I inquired. "We probe," she replied. "We'll retrieve system notes, examine entry records, question staff. If your supervisor was altering records, we'll detect it, and if he was diverting merchandise, we'll measure it." "How much time will that require?" 6 to 8 weeks, perhaps more if the firm resists. It required 11 weeks. In that period, I learned nothing. My jobless benefit was rejected since I'd been dismissed for reason. I was surviving on plastic. My partner ended things because she claimed I was fixated on the situation and not progressing. I attempted to clarify that I couldn't advance until my reputation was restored, but she refused to listen. She departed and I passed most of June in my residence, fixated on my device, awaiting news. I considered messaging Marcus or other past teammates merely to check if they'd learned anything, but I refrained. What could I utter? Then in late July, I received a message from Sandra. The header was probe finished, private. My fingers trembled as I accessed it. The message was brief. It indicated the probe had ended, results were delivered to the firm, and I should anticipate outreach from their law team in 48 hours. I didn't rest that evening. The following afternoon, I got a call from Paul, the area overseer, the identical man who dismissed me. "We must convene," he stated. His tone was strained. Can you visit the workplace tomorrow at 10 a.m.? Am I regaining my position? I questioned. There was an extended silence. We'll cover all tomorrow. I arrived 15 minutes ahead. I donned the identical outfit I'd worn to my dismissal session. When I entered the structure, the front desk person regarded me as if she'd witnessed a specter. She said nothing. She merely gestured toward the meeting space. Paul was present. So was the HR individual and a lady I didn't know who presented herself as the firm's chief lawyer. Paul appeared to have matured 5 years. He avoided my gaze when he uttered, "We are indebted to you for an regret." The attorney pushed a paper over the desk. It was the review document, 37 pages. "Derek Paulson has been dismissed," she declared. Our probe discovered that he methodically distorted stock notes over 14 months. He redirected about $340,000 in goods to an alternate purchaser and utilized his admin permissions to hide the mismatches. When you commenced probing, he proactively blamed you to divert attention. I merely fixated on the figure, $340,000. We're ready to propose a resolution, the attorney proceeded. This encompasses retroactive salary for the duration you were dismissed, recompense for image damage, and a private monetary sum. In return, you would endorse a secrecy pact and consent not to seek additional court proceedings. I didn't glance at the figure on the resolution proposal. I simply inquired, "Did you notify the authorities?" Paul adjusted in his chair. "Derek has been helpful. He's consented to reimburse the pilfered sum in return for us not filing complaints." "He pilfered $340,000 and you're not filing complaints?" "It's complex," the attorney replied. "He's already set up a reimbursement scheme and legal action would be expensive," and I rose. "I want you to notify the authorities immediately or I'm exiting here and notifying them myself." There was a prolonged quiet. "We can't prevent you from submitting a police statement," the attorney eventually replied. "Then I'm submitting one." I did. I proceeded directly from that session to the closest law enforcement office and submitted a statement for pilfering and deceit. I provided them a duplicate of the review document. I gave them Sandra's details. I gave them all. Derek was detained 4 days afterward. It appeared in the regional commerce updates. The title was akin to storage supervisor detained in $340,000 pilfering plot. My identity wasn't noted, but all in the field knew who'd been faulted initially. My device began alerting again. This time it was folks expressing regret. Marcus phoned and left a recording that was him faltering for 2 minutes prior to disconnecting. A few past teammates sent messages that all conveyed some version of "I'm deeply sorry. I ought to have realized." I didn't reply to any. What could I utter? "It's fine that you accepted I was a pilferer." It wasn't fine. They discarded me the instant it was easy. The firm ultimately resolved with me. The amount was sufficient to handle my attorney costs, my forfeited earnings, and offer a buffer during my employment hunt. I endorsed the secrecy pact, but only after they consented to dispatch a correction message to each customer and associate Derek had reached. The message was ambiguous, but it essentially declared prior declarations about a past staff member were incorrect. "We lament any misunderstanding." I secured a fresh position in September. Different firm, identical field. When they contacted my endorsements, no one had negative comments anymore. Amusing how that operates. Derek admitted fault in November. He received 2 years, but he'll likely complete 8 months. The compensation scheme is ridiculous. He's meant to reimburse $340,000 on a timeline that'll require 20 years. He'll likely file insolvency and never settle most. But here's the point, I don't concern myself with the funds. I concern myself that I was correct. I concern myself that each individual who abandoned me now recognizes they were mistaken. I encountered Marcus at a cafe last month. He spotted me and promptly approached, appearing as if he desired to speak. I merely regarded him and continued moving. He didn't pursue. My former partner messaged me in December inquiring about my well-being. I didn't answer. I'm faring well. I have a role I appreciate, teammates who value me, and an untainted history. I don't require anyone's regret. I don't require anyone's approval. I was correct. I possess the review document to confirm it, and that's sufficient.